Okay, there we are. We are live. Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah story is called Parshat Yitro. And Yitro is the name for Jethro. It's the Hebrew name for Jethro. Who is Jethro? Jethro is the father-in-law of Moses. And Jethro, we're recognizing the importance of Jethro here by seeing how he was a guide for Moses. Jethro advised Moses to appoint certain individuals as officials on this mission as he guided the Jews to Mount Sinai, as he guided the Hebrew people to Mount Sinai. He said, Moses, you can't possibly do this alone. What makes a good leader? One who makes a good leader is one who makes more leaders, one who teaches others how to be their own leader. A good leader is one who shows others how to advise themselves from within. He doesn't just do everything all on his own, because this is not a sustainable method for leading. So that's a big message in this week's Torah Parsha. So I have my notes here to share with you guys, as I do every week. Everything in the Bible, the Old Testament, the Torah, is a study in human psychology and metaphysics. It is only secondarily a historical book. Fact or not, they are instructions in psychology and metaphysics, and in order that they would have a message for people in various stages of spiritual development throughout the ages, they're written in parable and symbol. Okay, so the reason they're written in parable and symbol is not just for the people at that time, but for people throughout time, because we're all always going to be at different stages of spiritual development. And so the Ten Commandments are written in a very practical manner, in a very straightforward and simple manner, so that people of all levels of understanding can make sense of these laws and apply them and integrate them. And so if you're reading them just for face value, they still are very helpful. So for people that are very ignorant of any spiritual understanding, it's still very straightforward. Don't steal, don't kill, etc. Okay? Also, journeying to Mount Sinai, journeying to that mountain, what does that symbolize when we look beneath all of the words? Mountains always symbolize elevated consciousness. And so they were journeying toward this mountain, this opportunity to elevate their consciousness as a unified people. Okay, the expression of the Ten Commandments is really an expression of the laws of the mind. The Ten Commandments function on every level of consciousness. So when you look at the commandments, we see them worded as thou shalt not. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not worship false idols. But when we consider the metaphysical understanding of the commandments, when we consider them as laws of the mind, it's not just you shouldn't do this. You won't because you can't. Thou shalt not is really translated in its scientific meaning as thou canst not. You literally cannot steal. You cannot kill, because everything is one. When we consider that everything is one, we really begin to understand the true meaning and true purpose of these commandments. So considering, for example, 15th verse of Exodus 20, thou shalt not steal really means thou canst not steal. Okay, why? You can't steal something that's not really yours when we really look at it as a matter of consciousness. It's impossible. You can't steal from an other because there is no other. And so the more we waste our energy and we waste our lives thinking that we can get away with these things, we're really just fooling the self. We're really just fooling ourselves. And so the commandments are there to show us, look, you can try to do these things, but you won't be successful. It's impossible. So stop wasting your time on these sins. You're only fooling yourself. Okay, Moses didn't deliver these commandments just as mere prohibitions. They hold that deeper meaning. Thou shalt not means you cannot. You cannot. Okay. The next one, let's look at the next one. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. The name of God is not simply its sound, but the name of God is our conviction concerning God. It is our conception of the nature of God that makes our whole life. You can't take the Lord's name in vain. even if you tried, because of the nature of consciousness and mind. Whatever our ideas are about God, not like what God is, but how that God is, the qualities of that God, those things will show up in our environment everywhere, because it's what we believe inside and it's what we will see reflected outside of us. And there's no escaping that, because it's coming from inside of you. So it's not, don't take the Lord's name in vain. Don't say the Lord's name in vain. You literally can't. Because our idea of what God is becomes inescapable. Okay, let's see what else I have here for you guys. Revelation is not simply the process of being given new truths. Yes, okay. So when considering that the commandments at Sinai were this grand revelation, all this is already inside of us. Perhaps it's not that it's something new, but revelation is something that we attune our consciousness to the message of whatever is being revealed, and then it is revealed. Because whatever we want to understand, whatever we wish to perceive, we have to become like it. This is the nature of consciousness. Okay, so revelation is not simply the process of being given new truths, but of learning to open our ears, our third eye or our ears, our perception, to something which earlier was inconceivable. So that noise at Mount Sinai, that thunder and the cloud and the lightning, why? Why was it so loud? Why this thunder? Why this great noise? So that it could be heard above all else. Remember that when we're talking about the Bible, the Torah, the Old Testament, it's all a study of the human psyche. It's all a study of consciousness. And so that loud sound, that loud thunder heralding the truth, the revelation, it's really signifying that it needs to be louder than all of the other noises and all of the other sounds. That voice of truth overrides all else, and that is what calls our attention. And it's not just about the laws, the commandments. The greatness of this story, first, the revelation of those truths has to be preceded by the announcement that this great thing is about to be revealed. The sounds, the thunder, the lightning, all of this was preceding those laws being given, was preceding those commandments being given, because it was really important to first say, this is God speaking. This is the voice of God and none other. That is how powerful this is. Because if those laws were just given by some man and, presented by some society as, a set of laws to uphold to, maintain a conscious society, it might not have been so powerful. But the fact that God is, the very voice of God is the one that these laws are coming from, makes the story so powerful. It's not just some man, but God himself. And that's what makes this Parsha, this story at Mount Sinai, so powerful. Okay. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the concept that we go to Sinai. Sinai doesn't come to us. The mountain doesn't come to us, but we go to the mountain. And that whole story of leaving Egypt and then wandering the desert for 40 years and then receiving the commandments is like a journey through consciousness. We have to prepare ourselves to get to that point of opportunity for revelation. To receive the revelation, to be filled with divine wisdom, we have to empty ourselves, purify ourselves, prepare ourselves for such a revelation. Otherwise, we will not be prepared to see. Just like in the story, Moses says, common people cannot climb the mountain. Common people cannot go up the mountain. Just like Jesus said, you have to first make peace with your brothers before you can climb the mountain. It's all the same message, okay? Because it's all one. Those people, the common people, and the people who are climbing the mountain are all you. They're all one. The common people are our common everyday thoughts of ego, thoughts that cannot be taking up the vessel when we make that journey. Because if we do take those people with us, those common people or those common voices within ourselves or those sins or whatever, just, BS. If we take that with us up the mountain, we will not have prepared that space for the truth to enter. He doesn't mean, oh, common people, we're better than those people, because when you consider that Jesus, Moses, and all these individuals revealing that truth really were acting and thinking from a place of oneness, then what did that mean when they said common people cannot come up? If they were really seeing those common people as one with themselves, then it would mean something very different. When we look a little bit deeper, we see the true meaning is we have to leave the ordinary self at the bottom behind to climb that mountain, to get to those heights, to get to that revelation. That's how we prepare the self for that truth to enter. So this Parsha is pretty huge, because this is the story in Exodus of receiving the 10 commandments. They're not just 10 laws. They're not just a bunch of prohibitions. We have to look deeper. Yes, for the common person who is completely ignorant of a spiritual reality, they can absolutely be taken for face value. They are very direct. And of course, we don't want to go around killing and stealing and being jealous and worshiping false idols. Of course, those things are no good for anyone. But when we look more deeply at the metaphysical understanding of these laws, a whole world of truth opens up, just like at Mount Sinai when the tablets were given, just like that day. That's why that story is told throughout time, because it will always be relevant. The deeper metaphysical understanding of this story will always be relevant, will always be helpful, because it's reflecting a part of the human consciousness that is a part of a never-ending cycle. We will always come to these points in our lives where we have to prepare for a great revelation. And we can look back to this story for understanding, to help us prepare for the climbing of that mountain and the receiving of whatever that truth is. I want to tell you guys about this awesome book by author Emmett Fox. And it's a little old, this book. It probably written, I don't know when. I think probably in the 40s or 50s or something like this. It's called The 10 Commandments by Emmett Fox, and it's a metaphysical understanding of these truths. And it's a quick read, so for anyone who's interested in diving deep into the metaphysical understanding behind the 10 Commandments, which applies to all people, not just Muslims, not just Christians, not just Jews. I'm saying all people. Because we're all people, and we all are a part of this evolution of the human consciousness. If you wish to understand the deeper meaning of the 10 Commandments, I highly recommend reading the book by Emmett Fox, The 10 Commandments. Super excellent, quick reading, and I would love to hear your thoughts about it. It's so important that we understand that these commandments didn't just mean you shall not. What's behind those words is you cannot. Even if you tried, you cannot steal or kill, because you're only doing it to yourself. There's no escaping the truth of our oneness. And there's Moses within all of us, this aspect of Moses, okay? All these great beings that are spoken about in the Bible, all of our ancestors, these are just aspects of our human consciousness. They're parts of self. Their story is our story. So, has there been a moment in your life where you felt like Moses, where you felt like you had this great responsibility and maybe you didn't know what to do with it? Maybe you needed to ask for help. Maybe you needed to appoint leaders under you. But if you read the story of Moses, you will see that even he had people who advised him and helped him. He didn't do it on his own. A big message of this Parsha is also that we very much need community. And there are different roles within that community. And there's not only one leader. When you consider that we're all one unit, what does that even mean? It doesn't matter anyway. Even if we have 3, 4, 5, 6 great leaders, we're all working as a unified consciousness. And we all have our place in the great story. The one thing that really does matter is that we remember who the great, true leader of us all is, and that is God. That is Hashem. There's only one. And that's the most important thing. And that is a huge part of these commandments. That is the part of these commandments, is to remember that we cannot worship false idols within the self or outside of us. In fact, outside of us is the self. We cannot worship false idols. We need to remember that the voice of God is the very one who delivered these truths. This is a really powerful Torah story for this week. And every week when we read the Torah story on Shabbat, day of rest, the message, the metaphysical understanding behind that story is the one that is going to be most relevant for the entire week. So how will you keep Moses's and Jethro's story alive in your mind, in your consciousness, at the forefront of your mind and your heart this week? How can you maintain awareness of it as you move through your life, your reality this week, and apply the understanding, the truths behind the story to your life? The 10 Commandments are always relevant. That's the thing. So, of course, we're going to be able to find many examples. And one that's really important, thou shalt not steal, right? When we think of stealing, we think of going to the store and maybe stealing something, putting something in our bag, or stealing something from a friend, or this or that. But there's also all levels of stealing. I mean, trying to, plagiarizing, trying to steal someone else's words or ideas and making it yours. Either way, we're only fooling ourselves. You can't really steal. Because when we consider the nature of consciousness, whatever we didn't acquire rightfully in the realm of consciousness will be taken from us. Karma is inescapable. So if you feel you need more material for inspiration to remember this story throughout your week and applying it in a way that you integrate this truth into your life, I really highly suggest reading the book by Emmett Fox, The 10 Commandments. Understand the metaphysical truth behind these commandments, and you will forever be changed. Your consciousness will forever be changed for eternity, not just in this life, but even as you change from body to body. It's so important to understand the metaphysical truths behind these biblical stories. Shabbat Shalom, you guys. Thank you for doing the work in uniting the worlds within yourself and without. Shabbat is for everyone. Shabbat's not just for Jewish people. What about the Sabbath? Christians have the Sabbath. All peoples have their own form of this day of rest. In fact, keeping the Sabbath is one of the commandments. But it's not what you think it is. Most likely it's not what you think it is. Keeping the Sabbath is something that applies to everyone. This is a reality of duality. We have different polarities within us that we are constantly trying to balance. We come into this world on that mission. We come into this world out of the womb, that oneness, that space of oneness. We come into this world doing a balancing act, balancing those polarities within us, the masculine and the feminine, the above, the below, the spiritual and the physical. This applies to every single being on this earth. So how are you doing that? How are you honoring that? I love to keep one day out of the week, and this is for many reasons, but I love to keep one day out of the week as a special ritual that's purposely designed to honor the uniting of these worlds. Of course, we do it every day, every moment. The Sabbath is really each moment when you consider the eternity of time, when you consider the illusion of time, when you consider the timelessness of time and space. Then the Sabbath is always present. But when we give one day or one time out of the week that we consciously acknowledge this, it creates a very powerful and sacred ritual. It provides a space for us to manifest the coming together of those worlds in a way that nothing else could. So thank you for doing the work and the play, and for reveling in the joy of this process of uniting the worlds within you and all around you. Shabbat Shalom. And don't forget to check out my YouTube channel, Rebecca Magic. Just go to youtube.com/Rebecca Magic, and you will find many recent videos, lots of cool new topics, short videos, long videos. Every week on Shabbat, I will be providing the Kabbalistic Mystic Report. So if you haven't seen them yet, feel free to catch up on the previous weeks, and I will keep it coming. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Shabbat Shalom.